Hi, so welcome to Art and Activism workshop for Social Work 312. My name is Alejandra Alvarez. I'm a MSW graduate student at the School of Social Work here at University of Michigan. I am also a intern at the CASC office inside of the School of Social Work. CASC is the undergraduate minor, Community Action Social Change. So thank you for having me, Diana and Darcy. I'm excited to go through this art and activism workshop for Social Work 312. So let's begin by going into the first slide. So what will we cover in today's class? So we will be looking at and discussing the following topics. What are art and activism? Murals as community action and social change, student movements, collective memory, cultural identity, and then I will also speak about Chicago, which is my hometown, Chile, and Morocco, which are two places that I have spent some time doing work around art and also around youth development. So let's go into our class objectives. What are the expectations and the outcomes for today's workshop? So the objectives will inform students of the power of art as a means to social change. Empower students to lean into their creativity that will lead them to think critically about community activism and organizing. So I wanted to share with the class a quote by Miriam Kaba, who is originally from New York, but spent a lot of time in Chicago organizing around prison abolition, as well as organizing for young Black girls and to advocate for them and to decriminalize Black youth. So this is a quote that really resonates with me, resonates with my work and my approach to working internationally and connecting to other communities outside of Chicago, as well as community organizing, which I have done in the city of Chicago around housing. And yeah, so I can just go right into this quote. I can't imagine my organizing not being international and not having an eye toward other people beyond the borders that I live in, and also questioning the idea of borders. So what I really think that Miriam is conveying here is that being international is not just being able to travel to other places and to see other places outside of your city, outside of your town, but it's about actually connecting to struggles that are global and that are connected to the struggles at home in your city, in your town, that you're actively participating in and organizing around. So I think that it's about interconnectedness through global struggles, and you can't do organizing, community organizing on your own. You have to work with community. It's impossible to carry out any type of organizing without other community members and relationships that you build around community. And for me, it's also being international. I can speak from my own experience of spending time abroad, working with different communities and seeing the impact that music, particularly hip hop and art, has on young people, and the ways that hip hop and art politicizes young people and enables them to organize and to find their own voice and their own power through art movements, and they become social movements. So that's my take on this quote. So we can go on into the next slide. So Diana has presented me to the class, and I can also mention that a little bit about myself. So it's just a very brief reintroduction. Um, so I'm Alejandra. I identify as Latinx from Chicago. It's my hometown. I was born and raised in Chicago. I have also traveled and learned about art as a platform for social change through my own independent research after I completed undergrad. So what we will do today is we will have a discussion and activate our art activism skills. So what you see here is an image. This is a picture that I took when I was in Chile in 2012. And this was a year after the student movements started in 2011 in Chile. So the student movements were around education, free education, accessibility to quality education, and education for all. So what you see here is you see students sitting out here in front of this monument. You see that there's a lot of different writing and different colors and art. I see it as art. Others see it as graffiti, which is, yes, it's also graffiti. Others would call it maybe even vandalism. I don't see it as vandalism. I see it as a message. This is a way to protest by writing these messages and these words on this monument. So they're sitting in front of a monument. That's also, the monument is in front of the University of Chile in Santiago, in the capital. And what the students did is they occupied the university. They took over the university as part of their protest and their student mobilization around quality and free education for all Chileans. So you see other students here, and they had like communal tables for having meetings, having conversations with the public, and also to have a way to connect with other students as well as the public around food, and just having kind of like these potlucks in front of the university while also having conversations around student movements. So I will go into the next slide. So we also want to dive into understanding art and activism. So let's look into community, social change, and grassroots. So what is community in art and activism? So community, for me, it's very much connected to art because art has always existed across communities and cultures. In non-Western parts of the world, art is inherently a part of cultural practices and a way for the community to continue being sustainable. Art is when you are carrying on your cultural traditions through textiles or through narratives, through storytelling. That's all an art practice. That's very much rooted in art and activism, because you are preserving your culture, and you're also reclaiming culture post colonization. So let's go into social change. How is art included in social change? So Chile had a 17-year dictatorship. So students and poor working class communities were targeted in state-sanctioned violence and repression. There was a lot of censorship during this dictatorship, and collective memory also happened post-dictatorship. Now, what does collective memory mean? It means that people were having these dialogues around what the trauma that the entire country experienced and went under censorship and state-sanctioned violence. And collective memory has really been central to Chile's healing from a generation, and an entire generation of dictatorship and political censorship. So I was able to understand that and dive a little bit deeper into that by having conversations with Chileans that were younger, that were older, that did have some memories and did want to did feel comfortable and wanted to talk about that experience um, for themselves and for their family members in a dictatorship. So I was able to do that when I spent time doing independent research in Chile. And then I also want to highlight Chicago. It's a US city with Black and Brown communities and immigrants from all over the world. There's also a lot of important social movements that have come out of Chicago and have been formed by Chicagoans. So there was the Young Lords in the 60s, and then there was the Rainbow Coalition in the late 60s. So the Rainbow Coalition was coming together around issues of inequity, social injustice, and a lot of racism and discrimination around poor working class people that are Black, brown, and white. So this is a coalition that was formed by Young Lords, members of the Young Lords, also members of the chapter of the Black Panthers in Chicago, and also poor working class white people that had resettled in Chicago that were coming from, some were coming from the South, also many were coming from Appalachia. So they found a common ground to start organizing and start coalition building around the same discrimination that they were all experiencing. And then we can also go into grassroots. So what is grassroots? Grassroots organizations have leaned into art as an activist practice so that communities are elevated and their voices amplified. So grassroots is really starting at the ground and really just moving from the ground up. And it's kind of like, for me, when I think of something that is grassroots, I think of a tree and I think of all of the roots that really go deep into the ground, into the dirt, and just the ways that those roots are able to spread out once there is community members coming together and there's coalition building and there's relationships that are flourishing around commonality of struggle and resistance. And so I wanted to highlight the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization and Getting Grown Collective. They're both based out of Chicago. Little Village Environmental Organization Environmental Justice Organization is located in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And they're an organization that advocates for the community, and they campaigned against a coal power plant to get it shut down because at one point Little Village had the highest rate of asthma in the city, and I believe at one point nationally. And it also, Little Village also has a high percentage of young people. And then Getting Grown Collective, they're also environmental justice group and also a farm collective that operates out of the south side of Chicago and Inglewood. And they have started community gardens and educating the community that they operate out of about healthy and sustainable gardening and access to healthy food and sustainable food. And it's also connected to ancestral ways of healing. So these two organizations have been resisting environmental injustice for Black and Brown communities on the south side of Chicago. Little Village is also, it's like the southwest side of Chicago. And then Little Village is a Latinx immigrant community in the Midwest and is also my childhood adolescent neighborhood. So I have a lot of fond memories of growing up there, and I always heard stories around not from within my community, but outside of my community. I heard stories in the news or anyone that was coming in to do some type of help or assistance for the community. I always heard stories about, oh, that there's drug dealing, that there's gangs in the community, that it's not safe, that there's violence, that young people are at risk, that we are vulnerable. And so although I always heard all of these negative things about my neighborhood and my community, I grew up knowing that my neighborhood was special because I experienced community in my everyday life. I knew that I was connected to my parents' culture, and that I had a cultural identity, and that I knew my neighbors, and that I knew classmates that I went to school with, and I knew grocery stores, and I knew that I could to go there and know someone in the community. I always felt connected that way. So we can move on to the next slide. So I want to share some images here of different murals, and the first one that we see here, this is a mural that's located in the Pilsen neighborhood in Chicago. And this is done by one of the artists that we will talk about later in the presentation. They are an artist from Newark, New Jersey, and this is an art piece that they did around immigrants, and kind of conveying their thoughts around the immigrant experience. And it's also a remake of I believe it's an Italian piece of art called La Pieta. So I also wanted to share this video on the arpilleras of Chile, which is women who were creating messages through cloth and through scraps of cloth, and weaving these messages and creating these kind of like a quilt, but it's also like a textile. And there's needlework involved. There's a lot of cloth that is pasted onto. It's either pasted onto or it's done by. It's all of it is done by hand. So it's needlework. It's also sewing. So we can jump right into this video.
I'm here at the Museum of Tolerance at an exhibit featuring these embroidered tapestries, which may seem colorful and childlike, but are actually a potent form of protest. That's today's BFD. All right, I'm here with Francisco Letelier, who's here to tell us about arpilleras. What exactly is an arpillera?
An arpillera is a tapestry, an embroidered tapestry that were created mostly by women during the Pinochet dictatorship in Chile.
So this collection sort of takes us through dictatorship to democracy. What kind of a role does art play in that?
It's really important to know that political change and social change is all about art. Mm-hmm. In the case of these arpilleras, yes, they began chronicling the daily lives of women, and so became a people's newspaper, a newspaper in cloth.
There's a lot of symbolism in each one of these pieces, and sometimes symbolism is stronger than actually saying something out loud. Would you mind sort of taking me through some of them?
Sure, let me show you one that's right here behind us.
Okay,
that's a good example. It's a family sitting at dinner, and there's a question mark at the missing family member's chair. The men are gone. Where are the men? They're dead or imprisoned or disappeared. This kind of thing became so symbolic for people and understandable that eventually a huge form of protest would be to go out on a city wall and just spray paint a question mark.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking, that clever way of how do we fly under censorship, how do we get away with social action that isn't necessarily seen as political, is what led to the coming up with this slogan, the no more, because it's really a no with a plus sign. It
Right.
doesn't mean anything until you start applying it.
All right, now that we know what an arpillera is, would you mind showing me how to make one?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Let's
All right,
go. Let's
great.
go upstairs.
Okay,
We're all
cool.
set up.
All right, so I finished my arpillera. I'm here to show it to the master, Francisco. Here it is. I'm saying no to pollution. As you can see here, this little smokestack. This is like a big glob of pollution. and this is a bird we're saying yes to. What do you think?
Awesome. I think it's beautiful.
You like the borders on the
Are
color
you-
combination?
It's great.
Now, as we've learned today, art can be a really powerful medium for people. What advice would you give to those out there who want to explore it as a form of expression?
Yeah, I guess the most powerful piece of advice I can give to people is to honor yourself and your life. Right there when you're feeling like, I gotta get out of this place, this wasn't meant for me, it's gotta be different. That's where our imagination, our hope, and our possibility reside. And that's the place where really great art comes from.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to the Museum of Tolerance for having us today. If you want to find out more, click the link in the description below and sign the petition to speak up for those who can't. For BFD, I'm David Park.
So the next image that we see here is a mural from the 70s in Chicago, and this is located on the south side. The south side of Chicago has a very strong history with Black arts and Black arts social movements. So we see here a mural, and you have here people, some you can see their faces, some you cannot see, and then you see these two people holding each other, and there's an arm and a hand reaching over to them. So this piece was done around housing, organizing, and tenants' rights in the city of Chicago during the 70s. So it's sending a message about people in housing and tenants' rights, and a landlord who is not being equitable or fair to tenants. And then here, I also wanted to share, this is an image of a graffiti piece in Morocco, and you see a woman here. And so I wanted to share this piece because there is a lot of graffiti coming out of Morocco, and a lot of young people that are engaging with art on the walls. And I think a lot of people don't immediately imagine that a Muslim woman, a woman doing graffiti, or a Muslim woman doing graffiti. So I really like to shift the narrative around art and who is doing art. And yeah, so that is just an image that I wanted to share. So let's go into the next slide. So now we can go into breakout rooms, and I'll have the following questions for you all to discuss in your groups. So we can do 10 minutes for each breakout room, and have a discussion around the following questions. When did you first experience art? What role does art play in social justice? Can activism happen without art, or vice versa? So I will go ahead and Diana will go ahead and put you all into breakout rooms, and we will come back in 10 minutes. Okay, so welcome back. I hope that that breakout room really got you thinking about different ways that art plays with activism and vice versa, and the importance that art and activism combined together play with social justice. So when I say play, I mean like how do they connect? How do they mix? How do they mingle with social justice to create social movements? So let's get back into the presentation. So let's go into the next slide. Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't seem that anyone has any immediate questions. So let's go right back into the presentation. So what I would like to do next is to do a mural together with you all on Jamboard. Here is the link. And then I also want to talk about this image that you see here. So this is an image of a mural from the 70s back in Chicago in the Little Village neighborhood. So as you can see up here, it says education for the people. Then it has here an image of a building and it says daycare center. And it's also in Spanish and English. You also have here that says the word peace, and you see an image of a person here and different community members here. And then you also see a hand here, and you see some other words here. So I took a picture of this mural because I could see that it was an older looking mural, and there's still a few of them left in Chicago, but they're quickly being erased because there's a lot of gentrification in different neighborhoods in Chicago, and with gentrification comes development, and with development comes painting over historical murals in the city of Chicago when developers are creating new housing for, not for the residents of the community, but for transplants to that neighborhood and community. So let's get back into the Jamboard. So let's go into our Jamboard link. So we have here our mural that we created today. And you see different images. So all of these images are images that you all searched for. And these are all different images that talk about social justice, social change, and identities. So I asked you all to look up any images that connected and resonated with all of you around social justice, art, and activism. And so we see a lot of different words as well. We see the words, there is always hope, the class action lawsuits. We see a quote by Audre Lorde. We also see your violence will not protect you, or I'm sorry, your silence will not protect you, another quote by Audre Lorde. We also see this highway here. We see people gathered together. We see a garden here and a gardener who looks like they are not only gardening, but protecting their community and making sure that it's sustainable, and working with community residents to continue gardening and possibly educating, carrying out education with community members around sustainability and environmental justice. We also see here an image of someone with, it looks like butterfly wings, and they're talking about their existence and their identity. So being a migrant, being queer, and those intersectional identities. And then I also wanted to share an image of the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization back in the early 2000s when they were campaigning around shutting down the coal power plant, and just being a part of different protests that were happening in the city of Chicago. So let's get back into the presentation. Okay, so now we're going to look at two different artists who are doing murals and larger scale art around community and for community. So for the first artist, we have this Legua Nuna Yawar, who is an Ecuadorian immigrant from Newark, New Jersey. And then we also have Dorian Sylvain, who is an artist, a community activist through their artwork in the city of Chicago on the South Side. So let's get into the first video.
My name is Kanuna Yawad. I'm an artist. I'm a muralist and an immigrant from Ecuador. I'm an immigrant and I'm a result of colonialism and mixture. And my name is a way of sort of showing to myself the history that has been taken away from me in a way, right? Growing up in Latin America and Ecuador, growing up super Cristiano, like Christian, and like going to churches and understanding traditional Western ways of speaking to you through images. And a lot of that I'm using in my work. And I think about that a lot when making murals, right? Like, I think that also echoes like my immigrant upbringing and just always being othered by society. So I wanted to practice art where otherness happens. And New Jersey is that place. You know, we're not just surviving as artists here, we find a place to thrive. That energy is always something that I've always seen in Newark. So, you know, I see history and I cannot make artwork that denies that history. So I'm fighting for liberation within my work. I think Newark historically has also stood up to that quest. Newark has been pushing towards that. Whenever I'm in my studio, like I am right now, this is a small little world. And it's me talking to a piece of canvas or to an audience of history and talking to myself, right? When I put this artwork in a gallery, it starts talking to other people. I wanted to step away from that. So I started making the art on buildings so that there is no medium, there is no gallery, there is no museum. So you can directly speak to people. And when I make a painting, I'm storytelling. When I make a mural, I'm doing the same thing. If I use video, it's the same. I've been working with 3D environments and virtual reality and putting all of those mediums together and achieving the same result, which is storytelling. I also want to push my art making to new places where I'm not comfortable. I think that's something that, you know, being in Newark, seeing the creativity here is also inspiring. I also think it's important for people of color to be represented in all forms of media, especially now celebrating ourselves and speaking our voices and being heard and seen and felt is a radical form of being.
So now we will go into Dorian Sylvain. I also shared this video prior to today's class, just so you all could have a look into what community murals look like in the South Side of Chicago.
Of artists is encouraging communities to reclaim their neighborhoods through the art of storytelling. Arts correspondent Angel Ito shares more. The intersection of 71st and Jeffrey was once described as the main artery of the South Shore neighborhood, but that has since changed as disinvestment and blight now stand in its place. So artist Dorian Sylvain decided to reclaim the corner with art.
So we feel that this corner is such an important intersection for the community, the children, the seniors, the neighbors that live here, that reclaiming it artistically, it doesn't change the fact that this building is still abandoned, but it does tackle the psychological stress of seeing abandoned properties everywhere you look.
Mural Moves, a campaign executed by Sylvain and her artistic children, has been working to help beautify Black and Brown businesses during the pandemic.
I love working with them, but also it's about kind of passing down skills, passing down legacy, passing down ideas of citizenship, and how we as artists have commitments to our neighborhood.
They invited artists from the neighborhood to volunteer their time and invest in their community.
You know, a lot of our neighborhoods are in the condition they're in because they're neglected, especially in the arts. I just want to make sure that I use my art as a form of protest, because I think my slogan is art is my weapon. I may not be out there on the front lines fighting and, you know, whatever the case may be, I just feel like this is my way of showing my solidarity with the movement to help advance the culture to the level it's supposed to be.
It's an opportunity for anyone to come out and share their story. That's how 10-year-old Ashay Williams ended up painting this. She was just walking down the street with her parents and decided to stop.
I just hope that they like it if they want to. They don't have to like it.
Sylvain's son, Kahari, says it's intersections like these that speak to the necessity behind their work.
Cultivating younger artists is really important, and like mentorship and having like people that have experience that you can talk to about it is it's just a big part of the game.
With the help of a few students, art teacher Loris Hawkins created a piece that references a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar.
We wear the mask that grins and lies. So that's really applicable to what we're going through now, sort of like as people of color are facing really what they've been facing for the past 300-400 years, but now it's like the scab is ripped off publicly. But at the same time, it's like that's how we always have to keep our cool, and we have to keep our calm, and we have to find ways to survive and to thrive in spite of all the crazy. It kind of brightens your spirit, make your spirit feel a little lighter, you know?
For Arlene Turner Crawford, it was about paying tribute to late civil rights activist Dr. Conrad Worrell with a phrase that she believes embodies his work. Candace Hunter continued a series she started when the pandemic began, titled Brown Limbed Girls.
The figures in the piece are just about joy, about sunshine and light and loving being in the skin they're in.
It's this message and many others shared at this intersection that reflect the long-term impact of Sylvain's mission.
We all just want to be heard, and not everybody has a capacity to draw beautiful things. And sometimes people just want to write their name on the wall, you know, but it is about giving people that platform, giving people an opportunity that doesn't feel intimidating.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
So in that video, Dorian goes into making this connection about psychological, the psychological way that that murals and art can really have an impact positively on a community, the positive psychological effect on a community when they see murals and artwork in the community on their walls. It's a reflection, and it's also a movement on those walls around having a dialogue around community and activism and social change, and it's really also like this idea of beautification in the community, how they talk about that part of the South Side being neglected, and it's not neglected by the community or the community members. it's neglected because there is no investments from political systems that operate in the city. So it's a neglect that's coming from those in power, not actually from community members. But community members are able to reclaim that power through the walls and through the artwork and the murals that are happening, and these dialogues that happen between different members of the community, from children, youth, and elders in the community. So we can also view another video on Dorian, and in this video, Dorian talks about their art practice and its relation to community work.
Dorian Sylvain, muralist and teaching artist. Growing up on the South Side, amongst so many artists that were pivotal in the Black arts movement, they really instilled in me the need for artists to be active in community. These options aren't presented, in particular in neighborhoods that there's been disinvestment. Access to art is a real problem. And so by working in the public sphere, I really felt of myself a bit as a bridge.
Today's our community paint day.
Awesome.
These past 4 decades, my energies have been spent not only in trying to give back to the community as a teaching artist, give back to the youth in particular, but also addressing systemic problems that we have in our neighborhoods. Art, of course, doesn't erase those things, but it can assist the young people in giving them voice and giving them power, also giving them skills. So the mural is not so much about the commission, but it's about opportunities in which I can bring in young people who are interested in public art. And so even just allowing them to experience that level gives them this sense of belonging to something bigger. You know, it's not about my yellow triangle, it's about what that yellow triangle means in the scheme of things. And to me, that's kind of like what community is about. Even something that simple becomes almost like a life lesson, you know, that says collective voices speak louder, you know?
So as you heard from Dorian, community is very much rooted in this idea of collectivism and collective voices, which do speak louder when you are able to build these relationships, and from those relationships you create social change. So we can go into the next slide. So what I want to do here now is have you all go into take a 10-minute break and individually start thinking about different words and ideas that come up when you consider the following questions. So what are some things that have stood out to you from hearing these artists speak about their work? Why do you think they include identity in their work? And what does community mean to these artists? So we'll be back in 10 minutes. So I'll go ahead and take a break and see you all in 10 minutes. All right, so welcome back, everyone. So I hope that individual journaling activity was helpful for you all to start making connections to your own activism, your own connection to art, and working with both of those to create the change that you want to see in your own community, in other communities, and in the world. So let's jump into the next slide. So I also wanted to share with you all some of my own artwork. Since I am also an artist, I started making art in 2013 in Chicago. I started going to the Hyde Park Art Center, which is located on the south side of Chicago. And I took various different classes, but my medium for my own art practice are primarily in printmaking, silkscreen, and collage. So what you see here are two collage pieces. So this is just the first step, and this is like my workstation and the images that I cut out from magazines and I put together here on a canvas, and then this is the final collage piece after I added all of the pieces and I covered it in henna, which henna is it's a plant. It's derived from a plant. It's ground into a powder and it's used in North African culture and in the Middle East, and it's made into a paste and you add it to your hands. You make these like really pretty intricate designs on your hands, on your feet. It's also used on the hair, and I have some henna here on my fingernails because I was playing with henna about 3 weeks ago, and so I wanted to add henna to my collage piece because this was a piece that I made after I returned from Morocco and from the Peace Corps, and I returned to the US, and I was just thinking about all the different changes and the different shifts that happened for me while I was living there, immersed in Moroccan culture. And you see some Arabic script here. And you see it here as well. And so the final step for me was covering it in henna. And in the first step with the collage that I made, I cut out pictures of myself. So I like cut them in half. And then you see that they're covered up here, and you only see like something resembling me here and here. And then this is another collage piece that I made. So these two, it's the same collage piece, but it was made in 2017. And then this one I made in 2015. So this is a collage piece that that I made from different images that I found in an old National Geographic magazine. And I also did it on canvas. So I also added some paint here. And then these words, I just kind of like wanted to see what it would look like adding these words together. And it doesn't really, I'm not really trying to convey a political message, but it's just united by fate. So just looking at the different images of the people here and how they're all connected, and the tones that are also included in the collage are pretty similar with earth tones. And then I also wanted to share some images of my time as a Peace Corps volunteer working with children and young people, and doing different art activities with them to carry out the mission and the values of Peace Corps youth development. So here you see a group of young students, and I have them like making this hand gesture, which is like birds. So I was conveying to them an art activity that I wanted to do around peace and around so like connecting that to like birds and to nature. And that's the way that you can also communicate art to communities. It doesn't always have to be verbal. It could be through body movements and through gestures. And then here I have an art activity that I did with some of the kids in the community that I was living in the desert in Morocco. And so I wanted to do a mural with them. And so we started out by actually starting the mural on paper and then working our way towards the possibility of actually making, putting this mural up on a wall in the community center that I was working out of. So I had the paint out here and I had the students, I told them that if they put paint on their hand and then they put their handprint on the paper, that's what a mural would look like. So that was just some of the ways that I would use art to communicate small changes that could happen in the community. So we can go into the next slide. These are also my art pieces, and this is some of my silk screen. And so the first image that you see here, I made this in, I believe in 2016. So I made this art piece right before I went into the Peace Corps. And I wanted to find ways to connect with Moroccan culture and the Amazigh people of Morocco, which are indigenous, the indigenous communities of North Africa. So I have here an image of a woman, she's Amazigh, and then I have these hands around, which I'm not really trying to send any type of message. I wanted to create an image of the indigenous communities of Morocco and to begin learning about them before I actually started serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Morocco. And I did this on through a CMYK process. So the CMYK process is like you add one color and then on top of that you add a second color and then a third color on top, and all of these colors layered on top of one another create an image. But I don't like to keep it consistent. I like to really just play around with the colors and have them like do this effect and have more of a visual effect on the person who's viewing it. And so I also have a different print here, and I made this one in, I believe, 2018. And these two pieces here, they were part of an art show at the Hyde Park Art Center. So here you see lips, and then here you see the Arabic word for to be quiet, to shut up, or silence. So this was just my response to serving as a Peace Corps volunteer, as someone who is female presenting, and just my experience navigating spaces in Morocco and navigating street harassment and the different types of attention that I would receive because of the way that I presented, my appearance presents itself. So yeah, that's a piece that I made. And then this is the last piece that I wanted to share. So this was also made in 2018, and it's a response to immigration, ICE, and just the different political agendas that popped up around that time, and the political administration and their message around immigration. So I have here abolish ICE, which I still stand pretty firmly with. I would like to just see all borders abolished. I would like to see a world free of borders. So here I added in the background here, you see an outline of the map of Mexico. And then you also see here an outline of the map of Central America. And yeah, those are my art pieces. And if there's no questions, I do want to share all of the links of the organizations and the different movements and the different artists that I talked about today. So Diana will share these links in your Canvas website for your class. And then I just want to say thank you all for joining me today in this conversation and sharing your thoughts and ideas with me today. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.